believe we have a quorum on it too.
Okay.
We do have
All
a
right.
quorum now.
All right, great. Well, first of all, before we get down to business, welcome back, everybody. Just to introduce myself for everybody who has not met me yet, I am the Secretary, Christopher Lawson, and I will be filling in today. With that being said, let's get down to business. Since we have a quorum, Ms. Bino Reed, could you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Mr. Brennan? Mr. Fergus?
Present.
Ms. Gleaton?
Present.
Representative Howard? Chairman Huggins? Mr. Lawson?
Here.
Ms. Mood?
Here.
Dr. Morris?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
Ms. Tracio is absent today. And Councilman Overture Walker. Okay.
Okay, so for the second item on the agenda, it's going to be adoption of the agenda. Can I have a motion, or do we have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So move.
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda.
We have a second.
I second it.
All right, great. So today we're going to do things a little different. We're not going to call the roll after each one. So we'll take a voice by vote. So all in favor of adoption of the agenda? Aye.
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 All opposed? All right. Agenda adopted. Thank you. Next to the next line item. Line item 3, which is the Midlands Transit Riders Association update. Ms. Bino Reed, do we have anybody here to speak with us?
Yes, sir. We have Mr. Walter Durst from Midlands Transit Riders Association.
Welcome, Mr. Durst. Please voice your concerns, but please be mindful of the 2-minute time limit, sir.
Okay, thanks a lot. I just wanted first to say that it's great to be back. I've missed y'all, and but I'm making a special guest appearance today. I want to first of all thank you for the free pass thing that you're doing for those folks that live under the poverty line. I spoke to Julianne Avon of Mercy on Monday, and she's real excited about it. And I know that the homeless population is excited, and just a lot of folks in general is going to be affected by this. And my one request, and maybe staff has already done this, but I would like to request that hard copies of the applications be provided at the transit station, and also with particular groups like Mercy, the homeless shelters, and things of that nature. Also, we have a route suggestion. I know Lexington County is not really as excited about things as we are in Richland, but if y'all could maybe consider this, to put a bus down Lake Murray Boulevard. There's some toward the dam. There's some low-income apartments down there that the only way they can get to the grocery store is maybe by somebody taking them, and that can be a problem. The route that we are suggesting would go to the dam, cross the dam, and go up to Walmart on 378, and then turn around and come back. It also would get bus riders to the lake, which, you know, would be nice once in a while, especially summertime. Maybe not today. But anyway, that's about all I got. But Charles and I want to thank you again for allowing us to participate in your meetings, and we hope to continue to do that in the future. Thank you.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you for coming on today. We're here to serve you, so thank you for being active in the community.
Thanks.
Mr. Secretary, may I respond to one of the requests?
Yes, ma'am, please.
Mr. Durst, we took about 100 applications down to Comet Central yesterday.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Chairman, would you like for the service committee to follow up on the recommendation for a new route?
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Mood. If we can take note, and we can address
just-
it in future meetings.
Yeah, just begin to explore that. Right.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we'll do it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you. All right, if there are no more questions, we're going to move on to item 4 on the agenda, which is the call to the public. Ms. Bino Reed.
There are no persons wishing to address the board from the public at this time.
All right.
BJ
Well-
Unthank.
Join the meeting.
Okay. So we will move on to item 5, which is the consent calendar. Do I have a motion to adopt the consent calendar?
I so move.
Do I have a second? Is there any discussion? All right. All in favor? Aye.
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 All opposed? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 6, which is the discussions and action items. 6 Alpha, the selection of the new interim executive director. Attorney Baker, are you here?
I'm present. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. I was having some technical difficulties earlier. So at the last, the special call meeting, the board authorized council for the board to negotiate a contract with the candidate for interim executive director within the parameters discussed during executive session at that special call meeting. We have had those discussions with the candidate and we have come to terms on an agreement which the candidate has signed. We would, the salary range was within what the board discussed during executive session. We would at this point ask the board to move to allow us to execute the contract and hire the candidate. And once the board authorizes us to do that, then we can get I guess it would be Ms. Teresa to sign the contract on behalf of the board. So I guess what we need is a motion to go forward with hiring the candidate.
Okay, Attorney Baker, let me ask you, when we frame that motion, do we need to include a start date? Is that
Yes,
necessary?
yes, the effective date, the start date would be November 1st.
Okay. 1 November.
Mr. Chair?
Yes,
Robert
sir.
Morris.
Yes, sir, Mr. Morris,
Uh,
Dr. Morris.
Is a motion proper at this time?
I think it is, Dr. Morris. Would you like to
I
frame it?
move that we move ahead and hire the candidate that we talked about in our last meeting.
Do I have a second?
And we would need to add with the effective date of November 1.
Oh, yes, and with effective date of November the 1st.
Leon Howard.
Okay, great.
Join the meeting.
Second.
Do I have a second to that motion?
A second.
All right, all in favor?
And
Now, Mr.
Mr.
Chair,
Lawson,
Mr. Chair,
I'm sorry.
Mr. Chair, I have a
Yes.
question.
Yes, sir, Dr.
Um,
Morris.
I would like to know what salary did you agree on, Attorney Baker?
Is that appropriate for us to have that discussion here, Attorney Baker?
I think we can state the number, yes. The board authorized a range and the the salary negotiated was at the upper end of that range, which was 175.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Lawson, I think you probably need to do a roll call vote on this one.
Okay. Will do. Somebody else had a question. I'm sorry.
yes,
Who's that?
it's Councilman Green. I was for a question for Attorney Baker. I mean, should we not also state the name now since the contract is going to be executed?
Well, it technically won't be executed until I get the board chair to sign it, and she's not present today, which is why we asked for an effective date of November 1st.
Board chair or vice chair?
She will.
That's not correct. She won't automatically move
was-
the chair. We vote on the chair.
Right,
Might
but
I-
she would have to sign this agreement because there would be a conflict with the candidate signing it.
But not as vice, as chair. She would have to sign it as vice chair.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Might I make a recommendation to clarify the motion to also authorize our vice chair to sign? I think we discussed that, but that wasn't part of the motion. But to clarify, given the recent comments, I think we should. So I'm just suggesting a
Okay.
friendly amendment to the motion.
Okay. So Attorney Baker, let me ask you this. Is that necessary? Under the current contract, do we need to have a motion for that?
I
Or
don't
does that
think,
need to be included in the motion? I'm sorry.
I don't think it does. I mean, that's just the procedure. Any contract has to be signed by I guess it would be either presiding officer, and in this case, it would have to be the vice chair, as the chair could not sign it. But I don't think we need to have a motion for it, but I don't think there's
Okay.
any harm in clarifying.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir, Dr.
Mr.
Morris.
Chair, as maker of the motion, I don't have a problem with including that.
Yes, sir. Hey, Dr. Morris, perfect. So could you reframe the motion to include that and to include the start date of 1 November, just for clarity for everyone?
Yes, I would, I move that we approve the motion. We approve the board action on the ED at our last meeting, including the salary of 175, and also including that the vice chair must sign
On a specific date.
on that specific date of November the 1st.
A second.
All right.
The only modification, but it just needs to be sure it says interim director.
Okay, interim yes.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Do I have a second there?
A second.
All right. Can I get Ms. Bino Reed, can you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Brennan,
Yes.
Mr. Fergus,
Yes.
Ms. Gleaton,
Yes.
Representative Howard. Representative Howard? I'll come back to you. Mr. Huggins, Mr. Lawson,
Yes.
Ms. Mood,
Yes.
Dr. Morris,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Teresa, Councilman Walker. Representative Howard, are you still on the line? I think you might be muted.
I think he's calling in, so it might be hard for him to unmute.
Yeah, I see him, he's on the line, but let's see.
Isn't it *9 or something?
Well, yeah.
*6.
*6, okay.
Representative Howard, if you hit *6, you could be unmuted. Okay, there you are. You're
Okay.
unmuted now.
Here-
Okay,
Hello?
your vote, please.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. The motion passes.
All right, great. Moving down to item 6 Bravo, progress update from RATP Dev. Is Mr. Cooksey or Mr. Smith present?
Yes, I'm here. This is Lenny Cooksey. Just wanted to report, or my report is actually included in the packet, pages 30 through 58. And just one quick thing I want to highlight is we had a very, very strong month in reference to our mean distance between road calls. It's actually our best to date. And again, very strong month there. But I'm open for any questions related to my report. That concludes my report at this time.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Cooksey?
Mr. Chairman, I have several comments from the perspective of the Service Committee.
Please, Ms. Mood.
Okay, I would just call your attention to the fact that the primary focus of the Service Committee has been on on-time performance and ridership. And although this report from RAPDEV does not show that we've turned the corner on on beginning to make progress on-time performance measure, we've been assured by Mr. Hubble, who's also on the call today, and through the meetings with RAPDEV, that the steps that they're taking to correct both the data and the actual problems with running the routes the way they were described and informing the public are underway, and that we can expect to see some positive changes in that on-time performance soon. It won't come soon enough for us, but that's one thing that I wanted to call to your attention. The second thing I wanted to thank the RAPDEV leadership and staff for is that there's a section in their report to you on digging deeper, and the Service Committee found it very helpful for them to be looking really behind the numbers on both complaints and on issues like on-time performance and ridership, to do a deeper analysis of what lies behind those numbers, because we think that's going to help us get to resolutions of problems much more readily. The third thing is that I need to make an apology, because at our last meeting, I was questioning the preventive maintenance measure on the key performance indicators. And it was clarified for me after the meeting that actually that's not a single number target, that target changes month to month, because a different number of buses in the rotation come up for scheduled preventive maintenance. So that's I hope that clarifies that for the rest of the board. It did for me, and so we're doing well with that now. And then the fourth thing is the report that references the COVID vaccinations of RAPDEV staff, and we were told at the Service Committee meeting that where the corporate structure is with trying to set policies that are consistent with the board resolution on that is that they now have submitted the information that's necessary to submit to OSHA for the federal government, and they'll be hearing from them, and then we'll have different grounds for seeing how they can proceed with making sure that our riders are protected from COVID because our staff is vaccinated. I had one afterthought about that, and that's that because our goal is to be sure that the staff doesn't present any kind of risk of COVID to our riders, whether we might want to think about for people, for example, people who've had COVID and are not getting vaccinated because they are certain that their natural immunity the antibodies stimulated by their having been infected are protective, and in the same way a vaccine would be. I wondered if we might consider having our requirement be that either they are vaccinated or that they are tested for for what would be a specified antibody level. We'd have to get that level from the experts at regular dates, which we'd also have to set to assure that their antibody level remains protective. Now that's a lot of detail, but I think we can take that up in the COVID special committee that we're handling under the service committee and talk about that if the board agrees generally that that kind of assurance would meet the spirit of our resolution to have all of our staff protected. I sometimes overtalk, so let me know if I lost you along the way.
No, I'm tracking Ms. Mood. I guess
what I
attorney,
would be asked is, I guess what I'm asking is if the board would direct the service committee to explore measurement of antibody levels as meeting the requirements that we have for protection of staff against COVID.
I guess Attorney Baker, I'll request your assistance here. Is that within our scope and parameters?
Yes, I think you can ask the board to, the board can ask Ms. Mood to take a look at that within the service committee or the COVID committee. And I don't think we have to have a motion or a vote on that.
No.
Okay.
So just direct us to do that. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna go back to some of my requests for months now. If everybody, federal government that most of our funds come from is mandating, why aren't we just on record mandating all employees and contractors be vaccinated? And is there any legal downfall on that? Because we don't have a policy. So we have to have a policy so our contractors will know what to abide by. We haven't set a COVID policy.
Yes,
So we
sir.
should
Mr.
have one on the record.
Mr. Fergus, we do for Comet staff, I believe, we have passed a vaccine mandate for Comet staff. And I think where we are now is our subcontractor is trying to work on a means to be able to comply within the parameters of what the Comet's mandate is. And so I think that's what Ms. Mood was talking about, that they're working on it and waiting to hear back from OSHA.
All right, but my question is, if the federal government can mandate it down to contractors and subcontractors, why don't we have a policy? See, RapDev can't say what they have to do because we have no policy for contractors or subcontractors. It's nothing that we've said they must do. So they have no idea what to follow.
Well,
That's my question.
and I understand, and I think as I've stated previously in meetings, we can mandate what we want for our own employees, but we can't mandate what RapDev does with its employees. But they have agreed to work on some practices to get in line with what our policy is. And there are all kinds of issues with they have to work through issues with their union. We have to make sure that we're not stepping into the role as an employer of their employees, because that has all kinds of legal ramifications. So I believe that we're working towards what your ultimate goal is, Mr. Burgess, is just working through the legal process to get there.
But
So,
that's still Ms. Baker, that still doesn't answer my question. If I ask RapDev what's the common policy? They can't state it. They have no goals because we don't have anything written, and municipalities all over the country are mandating it for cities' employees. And you have public unions all over the country. So unions, being in a union is not a major issue with that. It's whether we have a mandate or
Well,
protect our employees or not.
we do have a mandate for our employees. The board voted on a mandatory vaccine mandate several board meetings ago for common employees and staff. And so that would be the policy that RAPDEV would be trying to come to some resolution to abide by.
So this is
Mr.
my
Chairman?
request. Yes, 1 second, Ms. Mood. Ms. Mood, my request would be for you to work with staff and please provide the board with any updates as it relates to the COVID committee or subcommittee and anything that changes or updates.
Lost you.
Well, and what I was going to ask is if I hear what Mr. Fergus, I think I hear what Mr. Fergus is saying is, do we need to translate that resolution that Ms. Baker's is referring to that the board may pass into a formal policy statement? Would that get at what you were talking about, Mr. Fergus? Because if it does, I mean, the COVID ad hoc committee can work with legal staff to try to put the resolution in the form of a policy to bring back to the board.
Mr. Fergus, you copy that? Okay, I think we might have lost Mr. Fergus. Ms. Mood, I would ask that we look into that if possible.
Okay. We'll put it on.
And we can address
Chair.
it in future meetings.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, I'm sorry.
just a quick question. The COVID ad hoc committee, are they continuing to meet regularly? I guess and what's behind that question is if they are, and I think they should be, a lot of these questions really, I don't know that they need the board to direct them. I mean, it should be, perhaps we need a general directive from the board that just says, that tells the ad hoc COVID committee, because the environment's changing so rapidly. I mean, I think the CDC director just said that the definition of fully vaccinated may change soon. So that renders a lot of our previous action questionable, not the action itself, but what does it mean? How do we interpret it? So I think perhaps we should just issue a general directive to the ad hoc committee, if it hasn't already received this directive, to stay on top of all of this. You know, what constitutes fully vaccinated? What measures determine whether somebody's protected? I mean, I certainly, for one, really like Lil's idea. I think many of you were present when I stated my concerns with mandates as opposed to incentives. So I guess my point is that a general directive, if it isn't already in place, to the COVID ad hoc committee to continue to monitor the environment and report back to the board and make recommendations to the board for specific action or policy changes. I think perhaps that's what we need, because again, it's just everything's changing so quickly.
Right, Mr. Smith, and noted. And Ms. Mood, that's the point that I was trying to convey. If I did not, then I'll say it again.
I understand. And really logistically, the way that we've been doing the COVID business most recently is that we've just folded that into the service committee agenda, but it's a separate set of items on the agenda, just to avoid having the same people have to have two different meetings. And so that's really why I'm speaking to it. But
okay.
But I understand that direction, and we'll follow through.
Yes, please just continue to provide updates to the board. And as things change, we will adjust accordingly.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other
Chair.
questions?
Mr.
Yes,
Chairman,
sir.
Yes, Robert Morris.
Mr. Morris, go ahead,
Mr.
please.
Chair,
Dr. Morris, go ahead, please.
I listened at what we are saying. It's okay to have a policy for our employees to be vaccinated, but yet when we hire RapDev and others, we're not putting out there a policy for them so they can come in and work with us with the virus. And I think the ad hoc committee needs to study that and come back to the board with a suggestion.
Agreed, Dr. Morris, and that's what I just directed Ms. Mood to do, to research and provide us any updates from the information that she finds.
And I will point out to you in the RapDev report that I take some comfort in the fact that at this point, I believe over 76% of the RapDev staff have confirmed their vaccinated status. So I'm glad for the number to be that high, because then the risk we're working with is much smaller.
Ms. Mood, I'm glad to hear the 96, but it only takes less
70.
than 1% to give our employees the virus.
Exactly.
Mr.
I get
Chair,
it. I get it.
Yes, Mr. Ferguson, and
I
then we're gonna.
apologize, but I bring it up in the COVID meeting. I lost internet connection, so I didn't
Yes, sir.
hear much of the discussion, but I'll bring it up in our COVID meeting.
Okay, just very quickly before we move on, Mr. Fergus, the recap was I've given directive to Ms. Mood and the COVID committee to continue to research and update the board as they receive updated information, and we will adjust accordingly from there.
And to make policy recommendations as we see
All right.
necessary. Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. If there are no other questions, we're going to move on to Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith, are you present?
Sorry, me, Mr. Smith, or?
No, Robert
Robert,
Smith.
okay.
So we're still on 6 Bravo
Well,
under
that was the
progress
case. I just
update.
wanted
I believe that Mr. Cooksey gave the update that we need here. We're continuing to work closely with the comment staff and also with Mr. Hubble on the various areas, whether it's on-time performance and the like. So we're comfortable that we're moving forward and working with the subcommittees and doing the things we need to do.
Okay, good copy there. Thank you. We're going to move on to item 7 on the agenda, the motions period. There are currently no motions shown, but I'll confer with Ms. Bino Reed. Ms. Bino Reed, is there anything on your agenda as far as motions?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. So we'll move on to item 8, progress reports. So for 8 Alpha, the chair report, there's nothing to report. So we'll move on to 8 Bravo, committee chairs and updates. So the service committee, Ms. Mood, you're first.
All right, I'm going to try to stay within my 1 minute, but I do have something I really need to call to your attention. At the last service committee meeting, we had a report from our consultants who are working with us on Reimagine the Comet. Mr. Wag was the representative there. And what we had asked him to do was to speak to us to help us understand both the purpose and how the pulsing of buses, which in their terminology is a timed stop, and because of the issues around the buses and how and the city's concern about all of the buses being parked on the city streets at regular intervals during the day. So Mr. Wag did a presentation for us that was very enlightening, and he had slides, and we've asked that presentation be shared electronically with the board, and also that we be open to having him do the same presentation to the board, because it was very informative. But I'm going to just give you the main points of that he made. And what we learned from him was that he has slides that show exactly how this worked, but the purpose of a timed stop, which is called pulsing, is that it reduces the wait time for transfers, and that reduces reduces the length of the trip for our riders. So that's the whole purpose of that. And he also told us that that method, that strategy, is the most commonly used and the most effective for systems like the Comet, where our frequency of service is usually every 30 minutes or every 60 minutes for our routes, so that we don't have any routes really that come more often than that every 30 minutes or every 60 minutes. And so this is the best way to shorten the routes for systems like ours. Now, if a bus came along every 10 minutes, you wouldn't have to have this kind of the pulsing. But if we didn't have it, his presentation shows what happens where buses kind of pass in the night and people end up waiting an additional 30 minutes or more to make a transfer. And I mean, you and I can see how if you're trying to get to work and you add a 30-minute wait time to your transfer on your trip to work, that's a real disincentive for people to take the bus. So that's the purpose and how that's supposed to work. Then what we learned was that there are really two requirements for a pulsing or time stop system to work. One is that you have to have space for the buses, and the having off-street space would eliminate the kinds of concerns of the city of having those buses waiting for the transfers on the city street. So space for the buses to be, and also that the buses be close enough to each other that you can really make that transfer in 5 minutes, because that's what happens. And so the way that they are lined up now around Comet Central, if the bus I get off of is at the front and the bus I want to get on to transfer is at the end, it may be tough to make that 5-minute transfer. So, but the first requirement is for space, that space for off-street and clustering. The second requirement is for the location of the transfer point within the system, and that needs to be centrally located to the service area. Doesn't mean everybody wants to be going to that spot downtown, but it needs to be centrally located, because if it's not, then you're adding the travel time to a distant transfer station that also adds to the time of the ride, of the trip for every rider. And so those are the two major requirements: the space and the location. So our Comet Central meets the location requirement, but it doesn't meet the space requirement. And so so that's where we are with that. And at times in the past, the Comet's tried to negotiate for additional space around where Comet Central is located, off street space, but we have not been successful in doing that. The Lucius Road Super Stop that we've talked about here, it meets the space requirement, but it doesn't meet the central location requirement, because it means that people have got to travel out to Lucius Road and back, which is an impediment to having efficient rides for people to meet their needs. So what the best option right now looks like to me, it's going to be our planning for that multimodal center in a location that's both central to the service area and that can serve as a transfer point with space for the off-road time stop and the clustering of the buses to make that transfer possible within 5 minutes. Now, from all I know at this point, what I understand, not pulsing, removing the time stop element from our system would really add to our problems and not solve them. for one thing, as I've described, it would create problems for the riders in terms of additional weight. And it would also add to our problems because if you have that additional wait time, you have more people having to be at the transfer point. So when you ride by, it looks like a lot of people hanging around the transfer point. And then for people who are uninformed, that looks like loitering to them. When in fact, what we've done is we've created a situation where people have to just hang around waiting for that next bus to come. So that's just for the board's information. And if you are interested in having a more substantive presentation and discussion of this, we'll certainly arrange for that with the consultants to put that on the board agenda. And I'll pause here and see if anybody else from the Service Committee or Mr. Hubble or have anything to add to what I've said or correct me if I'm wrong. Okay. I'm not hearing anything, so that concludes the report of the Service Committee.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Moog. Great information, very informative. I think it'll be good to hear from at some point, hear from and receive a presentation so we can have all of the information before we make a decision as a board. Next.
Well, we'll just work with the staff to plan for that, putting that on a board agenda.
Yes, please. At some point. Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, if there are no other questions there, we're going to move on to the next item, the Finance Committee updates. Mr. Smith, do you have anything?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just briefly, Finance Committee met October 13th, had our standing meeting discussing financial performance this time through August. Then we also took a look at DVE performance as we always do. And then, typical discussion around that, nothing in particular to report, just that we're kind of on target in both measures, financial performance and DVE. We did, again, some very preliminary discussions around fuel use and cost. I think it's going to be, looks like it's going to be important to us going forward as fuel costs are going up. But then also we had some discussion around the recent banking relationship change, and from hearing from our CFO that relationship is going well, the change is going well. It sounds like they're very involved. So other than that, it was a fairly routine meeting.
All right. Hey, thank you, Mr. Smith. All right, we're going to move. Are there any questions? Hearing none, we'll move on to 8 Charlie, Interim Executive Director, Mr. Leroy DeChamps.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon to the board. You can find my report on pages 87 through 92 from the various departments and what we've achieved over the last month. Also, too, just a couple other things. I think it's on next week, we will have staff members that will be attending the after conference and expo in Orlando, November 7th through the 10th. Also, too, this month is open enrollment for our employees as far as their benefits package. So we'll be wrapping that up at the end of this week, and any changes that are made there, I'll make sure that they're processed and approved where they will take effective in January of 2023. And with the few seconds that I have left, I would just like to take this opportunity to thank the board for entrusting me in leading the organization. I think it's made me a better person individually and definitely professionally. I could not do it without the staff. And when I say that, I'm talking about the staff of the Comet and also RATP Dev. I think we've made great strides over the past 6 months, and I think we've got a good foundation for where we need to go forward. So with that opportunity that I had, hopefully I've taken that where I've made the individuals that I worked with over the past 6 months better individuals and better professionals. And most importantly, I hope more than anything that it's okay to show people that you care and you're concerned about them, not professionally, but personally. And I think through that, we were able to work as a team to achieve a lot. And I think with that, our organization has a good foundation for where we need to go forward. And most importantly, I cannot underestimate the importance of their support to me. And I just want to thank them personally, but also thank the board for the great opportunities that I had.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir. You have a question?
I'd like to commend Leroy for the performance as the acting ED. I think he's selling himself short. You know, I think Leroy did a tremendous job.
Absolutely. Are there any other?
Mr.
I'm sorry, I
Chair,
have a question. Yes, sir, Dr. Morris.
I too would like to commend Mr. Deschamps for doing an outstanding job. And let's don't forget that Mr. Deschamps was the interim ED and he served in his position as the administrator, the COO. So that was a major, major responsibility. And we just thank him for doing an outstanding job. And I have one question of him. What is a South Carolina deferred compensation? I guess that came under the finance report.
That's part of our benefits package where our employees can set aside funds for a later date for their retirement or just personal savings or investment. So we have that as part of our benefits package.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
All right, are there any other questions? All right, hearing none, Mr. Deschamps. So I echo the sentiments of my counterparts. We are very appreciative of everything that you've done, all the hard work that you've put in. So thank you. I think it's important to give people their flowers while they're here. So great job, good on you, and keep up the great work. Thank you. All right, so moving on to section 1 of 8, Charlie, the DBE report. Dr. Prince.
Mr. Secretary and members of the Board of Directors, good afternoon. A DBE report is found on pages 93 through 96 of the board packet. Page 93 is a summary and a quick snapshot of all vendors with a DBE goal. And as of September 30th, 2021, the comment had paid approximately $17.8 million to vendors with DBE goals. And of this amount, approximately 5.3 amount was paid to DBEs. And how I calculated this percentage, I divided the DBE payments by the total paid to all vendors with a DBE goal. And this calculates to approximately 29.7%. And this is on a cumulative basis. On page 94, it ties back to page 93. This is just a breakout of all the DBEs associated with each vendor and the amount that's paid to each DBE. And on pages 95 through 96, I wanted you to see the payments made to DBEs by RATP Dale. On page 95, it reflects from the start of the contracts going back to July 1st, 2020, and it goes up through August of 2021. And based on the calculation, the amount achieved was approximately 26.7%. On page 96 is another way to view the data, and this is just based on the fiscal year. Of course, our current fiscal year started July 1st, so you only have 2 months of data that's reflected here. And once you do the calculation based on the current fiscal year, it's approximately 18.8%. I will continue to monitor the DBE payments to RATP, based on RATP DEP's calculations and what they submit to us and all other vendors that have a DBE goal. Mr. Secretary, this ends the report of the DBE.
All right, great. Are there any questions for Dr. Prince? Hearing none. All right, we'll move on to subsection 2, community outreach report. Ms. Bino Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My report is found on pages 97 through 99. And I would like to make special note that during this reporting period, we welcome 2 new team members. Juliet Sowell is our new public information specialist and board clerk. She started October 18th, and I'm going to ask her to turn her camera on so she could wave to everyone.
Welcome, Juliet. Welcome.
Thank you. There's Juliet. Mariana Paradis is our new marketing intern as of September 20th. And she comes to us from Benedict College. She's a junior majoring in business administration with concentration in marketing. And she's been very instrumental helping us to translate our some of our assets from English into Spanish. And this actually helps Arlene on the LEP that she has to produce. A couple of projects I'd like to call out really quickly is the University of South Carolina How to Ride video. And our intern Blake Gibbons helped, he contributed to the scripting for this. And he was the anchor for the English version. Mariana translated that into Spanish, and she's the anchor for the Spanish version of that. And there are other things that they have done as well. We participated in the tailgating at USC with the Columbia Metropolitan Airport, among other things. And this week we will be with Allen University's Homecoming Week. We're going to do a Comet Lounge there. And then we participated in the Pride Parade featuring the Soda Cap Trolley. So those are some of the highlights of some of the things that we've done, in addition to supporting the Swamp Fest event in Lower Richland. And that concludes my report.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask Ms. Reed how we can access the How to Ride video for USC? I'd love to see that.
Yes, ma'am. So it's still, we just did it, I think it was last week, when we filmed. So it's being edited right now. And of course, I will make sure that the board is the first to see both versions of the video, and it will live on both U of SC's website as well as our new website, which is projected to launch before the end of the year. And then we'll have snippets that will go out on social media as well.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. That's wonderful.
All right. Are there any other questions for Ms. Bino Reed? All right. Hey, great job. Ms. Bino Reed, a great job of, I'm sorry, do we have a question?
I think Ms. Gleaton, did you have a question?
I wanted to just say that you're doing such a wonderful job in reaching out and trying to help people so much out in the community. I have seen some of your actions, and you have done a wonderful job and well recognized. So thank you for your services.
Thank you, ma'am.
Are there any other questions, comments? Great job. Absolutely. Ms. Gleaton, you stole my thunder. But I will second that. Pam, great job of leading from the front. The talent pool sounds like it's great there, and it sounds like it's a bright future. So good on the group you have there. All right, great job.
Thank
All right,
you.
so subsection 3 of 8, Charlie, review of board motions.
There's none.
There are none. Okay, great. So we're gonna move on to section 9. Executive section. Do I have a motion to go into executive session?
I move that we move into executive session for the purposes stated in the written agenda.
Second.
Second.
All right, great. Ms. Bino Reed, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Brennan? Mr. Fergus?
Yes.
Ms. Gleaton?
Yes.
Representative Howard? Representative Howard? Yeah, Mr. Huggins? Mr. Lawson?
Yes.
Ms. Mood?
Yes.
Dr. Morris?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Tracio? Councilman Walker? Councilman Walker, you muted? Councilman Walker? Okay. He's there, he just did not vote. 1, 2, 6. You do have, the motion passes. You do have a quorum to go into executive session.
Okay, let's please go into executive session then.
Okay, give me a couple of minutes. And I'll move y'all in. I always get nervous when I do this. Sorry, I need to cut this off. Mr. Chair,
Yes,
we're back in.
okay, all right. So thank you, Ms. Bino Reed. We're now out of executive session. Do I have a motion for us to officially exit executive session?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I second it.
All right, thank you. Ms. Bino Reed, could you please call the roll?
Certainly, Mr. Brennan? Mr. Fergus? Mr. Fergus, you're muted, sir. Mr. Fergus? I'll come back to you. Ms. Gleaton?
Yes.
Representative Howard? Mr. Huggins? Mr. Lawson?
Yes.
I'm coming back to you, Mr. Fergus. Your vote, please, sir. Mr. Fergus? Okay. Ms. Mood?
Yes.
Dr. Morris?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Tracio? Councilman Walker?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna try you one more time. Mr. Fergus, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Mr. Burgess?
Yes,
Okay, thank you, sir. Is that your vote?
I lost connection. What are we voting to come out of?
Yes, sir, to come out of
Yes.
executive session?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. The motion passes, Mr. Chairman.
All right, great. Ms. Bono Reed, please note that no action was taken in executive session. With that being said, do I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
Mr. Chair, before you adjourn, I would just like to commend you for doing an outstanding job today. So thank you, sir.
Hey, thank you, sir.
And motion so moved.
Do I have a second? All right, all in favor? Aye.
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 Great. Hey, thank you, everyone. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Meeting
Same
adjourned.
to you.
Sam.